Sure. First, though, I want to say that these people that are planning this reset that are, they're taking advantage of what has been happening, uh, uh, the current emergency that's going on, the health.
Never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
Right, right. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And but these are the same people, these are the central banks, and these people, the elites that want to control everything, are the ones that are causing the wealth disparity. And now they're going to be the solution. It will only get worse if they're managing things. They want to try to manage this and not allow the free market to work. But I have been in 2009, I gave my first presentation on the death of the global dollar standard. And it was based on research that I did back in 2005, 6, and 7 while I was writing my book. I had a book called Manias, Panics, and Crashes. And I put that plus every currency crisis, every set of bank runs, everything that I could find where there was some major economic event. I put it in a spreadsheet. This took me months to do all of this research and put it all in a spreadsheet and list it. And I sorted it, and I was looking for cycles, something that repeats on some sort of regular basis. And one thing stuck out like a sore thumb to me. And that was that every 30 to 40 years, this was back then, the world had a brand new monetary system. It's actually 28 years. I was rounding. The shortest monetary system was the intra-war gold standard called the gold exchange standard. But we had the classical gold standard before the war, where currencies were fully backed by gold. The gold exchange standard in the US, we were 40% backed by gold. The Bretton Woods system from 44 to 71, where there was no specified amount of gold backing, but it started out at 40%, it dropped to 8%, and countries were actually creating an international bank run, the US being the bank. And our gold was flowing out at a tremendous rate. From 59 to 71, the US lost 50% of its gold. And then Nixon closed the gold window. There actually used to be a window at the New York Fed that paid out gold for US dollars. But only to foreigners. The U.S. citizen could not redeem gold still under the Bretton Woods system. And then we tried to do, I can't remember, I keep on forgetting this, whether it was the Washington Accord or the Smithsonian Agreement. I think it's the Smithsonian Agreement. But each one of these events, there's an emergency meeting of a bunch of economists and treasury secretaries and the heads of the world's central banks and stuff. And there was the Genoa Conference in 1922, the Bretton Woods conferences in 1944, and the Smithsonian Agreement in 1971. And so there's an emergency meeting that happens to try and hash out a new world monetary system. They put together a plan in 1971. It all fell apart, and we were just sort of left with this floating exchange rate system. And since the world had been flooded with US dollars, all world central banks held US treasuries and US dollars as currency reserves. The global dollar standard was just a default that accidentally happened when the Bretton Woods system imploded. Each one of these was a baby step off of gold, something that has never failed. A baby step off of gold. The next step is from nothing back to something. Each transition the last times around was something that the average person didn't even know was happening and didn't really feel. It was the world's central banks, international, multinational companies, and banks, large commercial banks that were represented in multiple countries. Those felt it, and they were scrambling to try and deal with the ramifications of the change from one monetary system to another. But people don't realize that the dollar that we use today is completely different than the dollar that was used before 1971, which was completely different than the dollar before 1944, which was completely different than the dollar before the before the Federal Reserve, 1913. Actually, they went into business. They opened their doors in November of 1914. That's when the dollar went from full gold backing to a fractional reserve Ponzi scheme. I discovered that when I was writing my book, 2005, 6, and 7, and I started giving presentations on it in 2009. I called it the death of the global dollar standard. Everybody else is now calling it the monetary reset. So it's something that is going to happen. The current system is now 49 years old, and it becomes 50 August 15th of 2021. It's the worst designed, most unstable of these systems, and it's the longest lived. And when I first started giving these presentations, there would be like a nail in the coffin every year or two. And then they started coming every month or two, and then every week or two, and then every day or two. And now there are multiple nails every single day. So you can, if you're paying attention, you can see the cracks in the global monetary system, that it is coming apart. All the world's central banks are starting to develop these digital blockchain-based currencies and that they're going to be issuing soon, because that makes it easier for them to maintain control when everybody would really rather turn to something else. But the world is turning away from the US dollar. This is going to cause an enormous wealth transfer as this event takes place. And it won't be anything unusual. It's just history repeating. And I said in these videos, mark my words, there will come a day where there's an emergency meeting of the G20 finance ministers or something like that. And it's just the same as as the Smithsonian Agreement, the Bretton Woods meetings, the Genoa Conference. It's the same thing, just happening over and over again. It's history repeating. Nothing new, nothing to see here, folks, but just get ready for it, because it'll cause a wealth transfer, and you're either going to be a victim or a beneficiary. You have to make this choice. If you don't make the choice, you're a victim. Well, the currency is actually backed by something. First of all, the US dollar is mostly backed. The vast majority is backed by future taxation. When the Federal Reserve buys a US Treasury, they are buying a cash flow stream out of future taxation. And so every dollar that exists is a receipt for your enslavement. You're going to have to give them you're going to have to work and produce income for them in the future. They're going to take a slice of everything that you make in order to have prosperity today, in order to have dollars in circulation. The Federal Reserve creates dollars, but they've got them. And to get them in circulation, they buy a US Treasury or a mortgage-backed security from somebody.